Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with some new Dark Souls 3 gameplay footage which was provided to us by NukemDukem. He got to attend an event over in San Francisco where people were allowed to play the starting sections of Dark Souls 3, so let's get things started with the intro.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. The fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old lords of Cinder from their graves. Aldrich, Saint of the Deep. Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers. And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the Giant. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
And shortly after the typically enigmatic introduction to another Dark Souls game, we are instantly thrust upon the world into the Cemetery of Ash. Now you have a very basic starter area like you tend to have in most Souls games, with the messaging system kind of telling you what you're supposed to be doing as you go ahead and get to practice on a couple of pretty easy enemies. As you can see, most enemies here will get one shot. These are just for practice, kind of to get you to grips with the mechanics of the game. It is something that you see in most Souls titles. Now, as I mentioned at the very start of this video, the person actually behind the controller here is NukemDukem. I'm just providing commentary. I also edited this footage together to try and give you guys as much footage that hasn't really been seen as possible, because this particular build that NukemDukem got to play also has a large chunk of what was the network stress test. Some of you guys might remember that. We live streamed that over at TGN. So there's a live stream of me playing through that entire area for the first time. So I wanted to show you guys as much as possible, as much footage as possible that did not converge with that specific area. So this is the intro area. The character that he created was the knight class, as you guys can clearly see. This is your very typical knight. Sword, shield, plated armor. There are other classes that you can choose from. I did skip through the character creation screen. I don't know how many of you actually care about that, but it's the typical classes that you find in Souls games. The dual wield guy, the mage guy, the faith guy, that kind of stuff. Here you see Nukem trying to press the X button. This is on the Xbox One, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a PC with an Xbox controller, because I see the Xbox controls constantly popping up. But considering that this is running at 30 FPS, I do believe that this is the Xbox One version. I think there's also a couple of achievements that will pop up as we go through. I mean, obviously these are just the starter achievements, so no major spoilers there. However, if you are a Dark Souls purist, like if you really want to have the most unspoiled experience possible, I would actually advise you to maybe click away if you don't want to see any more gameplay, because there are a couple of things in here that I would consider to be somewhat spoilerish. Anyway, as you guys can clearly see, Nukem at this stage was looking to his right, like, there's a big enemy over there. I don't want to mess with that enemy, but the enemy wants to mess with him. You can see that this is an interesting enemy. He looks kind of like the crystal golems that you have in Dark Souls 1. He also does a little crystal AoE attack, but he instead of actually attacking you like the golems, he kind of rolls around. And here you see a mechanic that I've only really seen in Bloodborne, thus confirming that they've adapted some of the mechanics in Bloodborne onto Dark Souls 3, which was the enemy was staggered for a brief period there, which enabled Nukem to go ahead and perform what we call a visceral attack, but I guess in Dark Souls it's more like a riposte or riposte. I never know how to pronounce that word, which I thought was very interesting. So basically, if you stagger your enemies, you will be able to do ripostes and not just always have to rely on parries. Or maybe this is a mechanic specific for larger enemies. I don't know. I'm going to go deep into theory of crafting if I keep going here. But interesting scenery in the background, all of those snowy stages. For those of you that aren't aware, usually in Souls games, the stuff that you see, you're usually able to get there, which clearly tells us that more likely than not, we will see also like snowy areas and whatnot, which most Dark Souls kind of have a snowy area, or at least ashy area, so to speak. Going back to the intro that we saw right at the start of this video, as we go through a couple of more basic enemies here, as Nukem kind of tries to get his bearings down with the controls. But going back to the intro, you guys will notice the reference to some Lords of Cinder. Now, the only Lord of Cinder that I'm personally familiar with is obviously Gwyn from Dark Souls 1, but there they mentioned 3 others. Now, they only mentioned those 3 Lords of Cinder. I wonder if we will see Gwyn in this game or not. I think it would be an interesting throwback, considering that, you know, Gwyn is the original Lord of Cinder. But maybe we won't. Maybe we will just see references to him. Because as we know, in the worlds of Dark Souls, the flow of time is convoluted. And therefore, there isn't really a way to know, at least at this stage, I don't think. Because I haven't been doing a lot of research in Dark Souls 3 to kind of keep myself as fresh as possible for when I actually go into the game. But I don't believe it's been mentioned on whether or not it's a prequel or a sequel. And I don't think there's going to be any way to know unless Miyazaki specifically states, oh, this is after the events of Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2. Anyway, we had our first death there. I cut away some of the footage where he was just wandering around. And we're going to have access to our very first boss fight now. You can clearly see that this is a boss arena. You can clearly see that there's a boss in the middle of the room. And I think Nukem was just like, I don't want to do this. Now, pay close attention to the sword that he is removing from the boss, because this will come into play later. Pay very close attention. Notice that it's a coiled sword. And I want you guys to pay attention to that because that's going to come into play later. Also, notice the black stuff on the back of the boss. Because again, that is not hair. That is something entirely different. It is a new mechanic that is going to be in Dark Souls 3, I believe. And it is something that, again, you guys will want to pay attention to. Now, this boss felt incredibly forgiving just from watching the footage here. Because he's not dealing that much damage. He's taking his time. He's being somewhat predictable. And allowing Nukem to kind of just punish him for being that predictable. Again, look at that. Hit another attack. Didn't really deal that much damage, even with the direct hit system there, because you kind of just like poked right at him. So, this is just an introductory boss. And I can tell that they're going kind of easy on the players, if this is the difficulty that we can expect from the first boss. But it is only on the first boss, because after you're out of this area, they're going to pull no punches, which, to be honest, I really like. So there you see the black stuff that he had on his back kind of mutated and created that, whatever the hell that is, which kind of seems to shift the mechanics of this particular boss fight a little bit. He now becomes more aggressive. He has a new moveset. He has that claw that you got there on the left side. And he's going to be doing some leap attacks. However, much to my surprise, NukemDukem is able to kind of survive here, dodging away. And something that you can also notice, which I'm not sure if you guys have been noticing, is pay attention to the fact that Nukem is in full plate armor, sword and shield, and the amount of times that he is rolling with a fast roll. A clear indicator that Miyazaki, I mean, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he didn't even use up his whole stamina gauge. This is a fresh-made character. He was able to roll 6 times with heavy plate armor and what seemed like a fast roll. So that clearly tells you that they're going for a much faster pace than in previous Souls titles. And there you go, the coiled sword. What does that look like? That looks very much like a bonfire sword, doesn't it? Yeah, that's going to come into play later. So here we see the lighting of... is this the first bonfire? No, I think he lit a bonfire in the back there. But this is going to be kind of like his first stop, so to speak, his first actual checkpoint after killing a boss. And what comes after this bonfire is actually really impressive. So here he was, I guess Nukem was trying to figure out where the hell's the sword that I just picked up, but that sword is like a key item and not really an item that you can equip. But I don't think he stays on this particular point too much. We're going to move right ahead onto the next section. There you go, see? It is a key item right there, the coiled sword. Thrust in Shrine Bonfire to activate Bonfire Warp. Now, are these going to be limited? Now, that is an interesting theory right there, because if these are limited, you're going to have to pick and choose which bonfires you're going to be able to warp to, which is an interesting concept, you know, maybe for, you know, doing certain runs for different builds and whatnot. You will want to place the coiled sword in different locations. And, you know, just thinking about that particular mechanic is an interesting thought process behind what they expect players to think about when making the decision of where to thrust the sword. Here, a little bit of a troll item. You pick up the broken sword. Who knows? Maybe you'll be able to upgrade it and it can become completely awesome. You never know. Slowly moving through here, I would just like to mention that you can clearly see the influence on the art of Bloodborne kind of creeping its way into the Dark Souls universe. Unfortunately, it seems that NukemDukem throughout this footage wasn't really able to do a lot of the new sword arts because I guess he just wasn't aware of what the sword arts mechanic was. And I don't want to, you know, I don't want to discourage players from trying something new. I mean, you don't have to be a professional at playing Dark Souls to play Dark Souls. I keep trying to tell people that Dark Souls is actually a very inclusive game. And it's just, I wish that he had used the sword art so that I can tell you, oh, look, there's this special sword art. Because there's a whole new moveset to most of the weapons in Dark Souls 3, besides their basic moveset, which is called the sword art. Or at least it's been referenced as the sword art moves. And now, here is going to be a major surprise for a lot of you due to the area that we are about to go into right now. I think at least a lot of you are going to be surprised. So I have a couple of more easy enemies here. Just going to grab a couple of fading souls and whatnot. We have another item over there on the back. I think that's also a soul. Most of the items that we pick up throughout... No, that's actually an ember. Embers work kind of like humanities. Or actually kind of like the effigies in Dark Souls 2 is more like it. Because you can basically become human anywhere you want. And right now we are in... I guess you could call it the unkindled form. Because... you can see that his health is actually slightly lower than what it should be. If he uses one of these embers, his health is actually going to go up. And he would, have more base HP to deal with the enemies that will come against you. But yeah, this was most of the starter area. And now we're going to go into an area where I purposefully allowed as much footage as possible because of this. So those of you that aren't familiar with Dark Souls, Firelink Shrine might mean nothing to you, but if you are familiar with Dark Souls, you will recognize the importance of this location. So this is one of the first bonfires in Dark Souls 1, and it just kind of blew my mind that Nukem just went in there and he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to walk on out. That was Firelink Shrine. No big deal. I am being a little bit of an elitist here, so bear with me. We found another soul in there, just soul of the deserted corpse. I don't know what is the important level of each of the souls that he's been picking up, but regardless, we all know that, the smaller looking white flames on the souls equals less souls per soul usage, whereas the bigger flames, so that one looked like an average, I would estimate 2,000 souls for the deserted soul thing. Either way, you can clearly see that this particular version of Firelink Shrine looks incredibly different from the Firelink Shrine we remember. Now, does this mean that this is a Firelink Shrine from the past? I honestly don't know. You can clearly see that, like, on the very bottom, there are a couple of circular stones. And you see the whole circular architecture around the whole thing. So to me, it almost seems like this would be the past. But again, I could be completely wrong, and this could be distant into the future where they built this structure on top of Firelink Shrine. Now, in a couple of short seconds here, we should be meeting up with Dark Souls 3 version of the Crest Knight, or the Crestfallen Knight, I'm sorry, which is this guy. And I'm going to let you guys enjoy the dialogue here. I guess we're going to go into the back before we talk with the Crestfallen Knight. Nope, here we go.
Ah, another one roused from the sleep of death. Well, you're not alone. We unkindled are worthless. Can't even die right. Gives me conniptions. And they'd have us seek the lords of Cinder and return them to their moulding thrones. But we're talking true legends with the metal to link the fire. We're not fit to lick their boots.
And you get yourself a new emote. So again, more references to linking the fire and the Lords of Cinder, and here...
Fire unkindled one. I'm a firekeeper. I tend to the flame, and tend to thee. The lords have left their thrones, and must be delivered to them. To this end, I am at thy side. Very well. Then touch the darkness within me. Take nourishment from these sovereignless souls.
And here we have access to the stat screen. I did let the stat screen stay here because I kind of felt was important. Now, even though Nukem didn't specifically check what each stat did by pressing the help button that's there, he did kind of move the level back and forth so that I could see the differences of each stat. And what we have here is that we have the attunement stat, which pretty much governs the amount of spells that you'll be able to cast, the amount of slots that you have for slotting spells. But you'll notice that we have Vigor and Vitality. What's the difference between these two? So Vigor is going to be your hit points. The more Vigor you have, the more hit points you have. Vitality is going to be the amount of equipment load that you can carry. So yes, they did separate that stat from endurance again, but they didn't do the whole thing with the agility stat and all that stuff. At least I can't see it. There's also the luck stat over there at the bottom, which means that we are going to have a separate luck stat. Potentially, we might even have weapons that scale with luck, kind of like in Demon Souls. Who knows? I'm not a huge fan of that. I know that Epic Name Bro is also not a huge fan of that, but that was the choice that they've made for this particular title. So just remember, once again, the key points here: Vigor gives you health, attunement; spells, endurance gives you stamina; strength, means strength and dexterity, pretty much the same stuff as other games; intelligence, faith, same stuff; vitality increases your equipment load, so you will need vitality if you want to do those heavy builds. And yeah, that was mostly what we got out of that stuff. We can see Nukem explore the Firelink Shrine a little bit more here, and we're going to come across a very familiar character in a couple of seconds. Here we go. That guy might seem familiar to a lot of you. There was also a character off to the right that he didn't really speak to. I was curious to know who that other character was, but here he is.
A newcomer, I see. I am Andre. I serve at this shrine as a humble smith, forging weapons. You're in search of the Lords of Cinder, I trust. A toilsome journey, I'd wager. You'll require good arms. Let me smith you weapons. I am a smith, such is my purpose.
Andre of Astora, a character that we haven't really seen since Dark Souls 1, making a comeback to a location that we haven't really seen since Dark Souls 1. But the fact that he is back at the shrine kind of leads me to believe that we are looking at more of a past time Lordran. But again, all bets are off until we can find out more about what's happening. We can see a couple of thrones. We see that this particular Firelink Shrine looks a little bit, at least to me, like the structure of the Nexus. It's got some kind of a throne in the middle there that we also don't know the significance of. Maybe at the end of the game, the player will sit on that particular throne as he link the fire or unlink the fire. You don't really know. There's a lot of unanswered questions at this point, and I'm just, I'm just being a little, informative here and trying to come up with theories. But anyway, we're now going to move forward, and we're going to embed the coiled sword, which was the next logical step in progression for this area. And that is going to enable a new warp zone, and it is going to allow us to warp out of the Firelink Shrine. There's also an option there to burn undead bone shard. I'm going to assume that that is going to be somewhat equivalent to the kindling of the bonfire, but I don't really know if that's the way it's going to work, because we only have 3 Estus flasks at this point, plus the blue Estus flask, which, in case you guys don't know, that blue Estus flask that's right next to the orange one, that will enable you to regain your mana. There is a mechanic in place, at least I think that there will be a mechanic in place that will allow you to have multiple types of each flask. At least that's the way it worked in the network test. And this area should be familiar to all those of you who participated in the network test, because this is where we played during that network test. We're going to be looking at a couple of key differences here from what we've experienced previously. NukemDukem coming in with that Zelda mentality, break all the boxes. Me, personally, I prefer to just roll over stuff, but usually I just tend to forget about the boxes after a while. Now the bonfire. And I know that some people might say, oh, we're seeing a lot of bonfires. Are we going to be seeing the shortcut mechanic from previous games, or just going to be more bonfires? I'm pretty sure it's because it's the introduction stages of the game, and they've allowed people to have a lot of bonfires. But I'm pretty sure that later on, you're not going to be seeing bonfires as frequently as you've been seeing them here. So that dude that we just killed was actually a trap, because you're not supposed to notice that he's there. Luckily, Nukem did, because he's supposed to go down the stairs to his right, and then he kind of shoots you in the back of the head with his crossbow bolt. He's a little bit of a trap guy that's there. So we got a couple of enemies sitting in here. We got a couple of dudes praying. And you got to be very careful when you see these dudes praying to these altars. And you guys will find out why. We have the dog, one of the most feared enemies in the Dark Souls universe. The dog's very fearsome on account of their unpredictable movesets and circling around and just being able to sometimes stun lock you to death. We see the dog getting good work done there. And we see a slightly larger undead with a big axe. That's the axe that I personally want to wield right there. That seems like the great axe from the original Dark Souls, and it is a badass weapon, and I love that weapon. I don't know if these enemies have a chance to drop it or not, but it would seem like a pretty powerful weapon this early on in the game, so maybe they don't drop it. Either way, we're going to keep moving forward here. Through the enemies, we see another one that's wielding a halberd to kind of get players used to different movesets from the enemies. He's going to be comboing him down. Now, the interesting thing that I've noticed is that even though you can roll a lot more than you used to be able to roll in previous Dark Souls games, it doesn't seem to be the case for the swinging. The swinging seems to take, you know, a little bit more of stamina in order to kind of compensate, or maybe the rolls just cost less stamina. But yeah, they kind of balanced it out. So you have more defensive options, but about the same offensive options. You can spam just about as much as you spammed in previous Souls titles, but you can also spam rolls a little bit more. Now, how this is going to be balanced out, I believe, is with the enemies just being faster. So this is one of the shortcuts. Fair warning, we're not going to be activating this shortcut throughout this playthrough. I will let you know when the shortcut appears and what Nukem did wrong, so that you guys can, you know, gain a little bit of insight from that. But yeah, throughout this playthrough, we will not be activating that shortcut. Actually, I don't know if now that I think about it, I don't know if I've put that particular part in the final edit. But we'll see. As we move up the tower. And I told you guys that we need to be careful about these dudes that are praying, and you guys are about to find out why. There goes the crossbowman, so we're pretty good. Looks like this dude aggroed. Okay, let's kill him. Oh, wait! Oh, no! Interestingly enough, it seems that the spirit kind of always mutates into the same shape. There's a head that goes above the right shoulder, and there's a left claw that gets formed around the left arm. There's a claw that gets formed around the left arm. Which is an interesting little detail. See, you can pretty much tell how the enemy is mutating. So here we see Nukem trying to fight off this immense threat and kind of struggling with the camera a little bit. But unfortunately, he got himself cornered, and we all know what happens when you get cornered against a massive foe like this. And you are pretty much done, sir. That was another death. Now I skipped ahead a little bit so that we could watch something a little bit different here. So this is the scene of the dragon. Kind of works in a similar fashion from the Hellkite Drake in Dark Souls, if you guys remember that, with the difference that it actually spreads its fire onto 2 levels. Now, this not only enables you, it not only provides you with somewhat of a challenge, but also enables you to use this fire hazard against your enemies. Because you can actually aggro enemies and bring them into the fire zone, and the dragon will kill them for you. Now, I remember at some point I was in an interview with Miyazaki, and Miyazaki just says that, oh, I just like having dragons earlier on in a game. I just think that's fun. So this is Miyazaki's concept of fun. You can see the flames going into that lower floor and just killing off a bunch of items. So if you're having trouble killing off a particular item in Dark Souls 3, you can always just try kiting him all the way to this zone and get the dragon to do the dirty work for you. Now, the reason I picked this particular scene of the dragon, because Nukem died here quite a few times, is because this time he's actually going to go through it, and he's going to bypass the dragon. And we can see the reward that he gets when he bypasses the dragon. Or is it this time, or is it not this time? Actually, I'm not sure anymore. Another one of the times he's going to be able to bypass the dragon. He's trying to find a way around. But he's not really getting there, so now he's going to try and just proceed through another path. Unfortunately, this door is locked, so it doesn't open from this side. It is actually a shortcut, which will eventually enable you to open that particular door. We see a knight off in the front, and these knights are actually really tough. These knights that you see over there on to his right, these knights pack quite a punch. Nukem going for the good old R1 spam. Let's see if it works out for him. In comes the knight with a couple of thrusts. You can see that the knight is moving considerably faster than the rest of the enemies. That's kind of how they balance out the fact that you have more defensive options. They make your enemies be a little bit more aggressive. However, Nukem was able to successfully navigate through the night, and R1 spam his ass to death. So let's move onwards here. The good old item at the edge of a cliff with the trap guy to the left. I'm not sure if this was the first time that he was going through this area or not, but he was able to spot that guy on the left pretty good. We got a couple of firebombs here. And let's see what we can do with them. Found another bonfire. You can get a good glimpse of the dragon in all its glory. Trying to locate a couple of more items throughout the world. Nope, that staircase is blocked off by rocks. And picking up another Titanite shard, which will enable you to upgrade your weapons, probably at Andre of Astora. It's actually pretty cool that you have Andre right there at the Firelink Shrine. Pretty convenient. Because you'll also need to go to the Firelink Shrine to level up at the Firekeeper. So you go there, you level up your weapons. It's a pretty convenient center spot. It's kind of like the Nexus in that way. And he's going to get knifed. Oh my god, he got knifed. So that's another death. And now we're going to be moving onwards. I believe that now we're going to go on to the scene of the dragon. Yep, here we go. So in this particular stage, in this particular section of the video actually, Nukem aggroed a bunch of stuff, and then he ran past most of the things. He was doing the typical Dark Souls move of, oh, I just died here, so I'm going to run past a bunch of stuff. Dragon got most of the work done for him. We still have a spear dude over here with his shield. Spear dudes are still as annoying as ever if you haven't mastered the kick. However, Nukem, even without the kick, taken care of spear dude by just spamming the crap out of him. And now he's going to take the chance. He's going to take the chance, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Here we go. Here comes the fire. Nope. We're just going to go right in as the fire is coming down. Boom. Done deal. Open the door. And what kind of goodies could we have waiting for us after the dragon? I guess that R2 was his way of celebrating. He's like, fuck yeah! I got through the dragon. And then we have a chest. Notice the way that the chain is pointing. Now, I don't know if someone told him or not, but he was like, Kind of like Onion Bro. He's like, He knew. He knew that there was a mimic in there. I don't know how he knew, but he did. You cheated, Nukem. I know you cheated here. You can't fool me. You still have the good old Jackie Chan Kung Fu kick. The attempt to grab. And the soccer kick right there. The typical moveset of the mimic. It's very nice to see it again. And the mimic goes down. What kind of secrets could this mimic possibly be hiding? A deep battle axe. Now, for those of you wondering, you can clearly see that small icon at the bottom of the axe, which means that that is an axe that deals dark damage, which compared to the sword that he was using is quite the upgrade. So that is an early dark weapon, very early in the game, giving you 103 physical damage plus 103 dark damage. So if you guys are doing those faith builds early on, there is a weapon that you will most likely be able to get to. Now, this area was not in the network stress test, which is why I wanted to include this particular section. Vordt of Boreal Valley. Now, he seems to have some kind of mechanic similar to one of the secondary bosses that we fought in the network stress test, which is the frostbite mechanic that you guys saw right there. But since Nukem got one shot on his first attempt, we didn't really get to see it in play. So I don't exactly know what happens if you get frostbitten with this boss. Maybe you become kind of like the cursed aspect in Dark Souls 1. But anyway, we're going to be taking another shot at Vordt of the Boreal Valley. Come on, Nukem. We have faith in you. Gotta give it to Nukem for his persistence. He's learning the patterns, trying to get in on the boss on the spots where the weapon isn't hitting. That's exactly what he should be doing. He's going for the kneecaps. Now, I'm curious as to whether or not we can stagger this boss like he did that earlier crystallized mob, and then get some kind of visceral attack type deal going. So here he gets frostbitten. Seems that his stamina... Okay, you get frostbitten, seems that your stamina takes quite the hit. At least that's what it seemed like to me. I don't notice any other negative effects. You guys let me know in the comments section if you noticed any other negative effects from getting frostbitten. Either way, he's going to be hacking away with his Axe of the Deep. The boss seems to be going into some kind of second phase. Some kind of enrage mechanic, just running back and forth. Becoming a lot more aggressive. Seems like he's preparing an AoE attack. NukemDukem very cleverly staying out of that AoE attack. But he did still get frostbitten. Seems like he took a bit of damage. Yeah, the stamina gauge definitely suffers from being frostbitten. Almost dead here. Gonna be a very clutch kill indeed. And down goes Vordt of the Boreal Valley. This is what I would call the first actual boss, because the first dude, way too forgiving. This guy, a lot tougher. Also, his Ember got restored, which is when you kill a boss, pretty much counts as if you regain your Embers, which is a mechanic that we've seen previously in Demon Souls, which is whenever you killed bosses in Demon Souls, you would also regain your, let's say, human form. Except in this case, it's your Ember form. So you're either unkindled or you're kinda kindled, I guess. Either way, before he can move onwards, he needs to go to a different section to get the item that allows him to move forward. And I guess at this stage, Nukem was just like, I'm done. I'm done dealing with these dudes, because he had run past a lot of these characters. Notice how there's a couple of the characters that we saw in the very early intro of this video. They're all out throughout the ground here, like on his left right now. The supposed pilgrims that were making the pilgrimage to the north. So that was an interesting thing as well. And now we have a character which seems very similar to the character that you meet in that we were supposed to meet in the Firelink Shrine.
Long unkindled one. I am Emma, High Priestess of Lothric Castle. Allow me to speak frankly. You will not find the Lords of Cinder here. They have left, gone, to their churning homes, converging at the base of this castle. Head to the bottom of the high wall, forge on through the great gate, and raise this banner to proceed.
The small Lothric banner. Now, this is an item that will actually lead us to yet another reference to Dark Souls 1. And on a personal level, being a huge fan of Dark Souls 1, these references are something that I can really appreciate, like us being in the Firelink Shrine, and then seeing Andre of Astora, talking to a firekeeper, that kind of stuff. I really appreciate that. And we're about to see another reference here, and I would rather if you guys in the comment section tell everybody who doesn't know what this reference is. I want to see this reference all over the comment section. What is happening in a couple of seconds here as we move away from this bonfire? Sorry about building up all that hype and then suddenly it's like nothing's happening. This is one of the problems of post-commentary, guys, okay? Bear with me. Trust me. Something's going to happen in a couple of seconds here, and it's going to be a pretty major reference again to Dark Souls 1 and probably to the location that we are going to. And I want to see that one in the comment section, you guys. So come on. So what does that remind you of? Huh? In the comments, come on, you guys, let me know. Either way, we are currently in a new location called the Undead Settlement. We're going to light a new bonfire here and explore a little bit, but I believe that at this point, Nukem was running out of time because we didn't get to explore much beyond what you guys see here. So we got to see the very starter zone. We got to see Firelink Shrine, which, to be honest, just like for, you know, a Souls nerd like me, kind of a big deal. We got to see Andre of Astora again. We got to see this particular reference, which was pretty cool. And now I'm just going to leave you guys with one more mechanic that I found interesting, which we've seen in previous Souls games. But I wonder how we can use that mechanic to our advantage as we progress in the world of Dark Souls 3. And that mechanic is, notice how there's these dudes sitting over here, these kind of like undead hollows, whatever you want to call them, unkindled. And they're going to open up this door, and these dogs are going to come in. And notice that the dogs aren't necessarily going after you. They're going after the unkindled. Just a little bit of a last bit of gameplay mechanic there. But anyway, that is going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, all that kinds of good stuff, and comments, feedback, all of that in the comment section. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.